Hello, my name is Jo van Apen. I'm making this video for you, shad. I'm not exactly a YouTuber, but I thought medieval combat reference and it seemed fun to add to the conversation. Well, I get that the point is to give companies a type of reference for what actual medieval combat looked like. But I don't think that has to mean that we can't exactly use techniques that aren't 100% historical. The end game in a game is exactly that. In the combat style they always take a character that's basically an extreme advanced expert. So they're likely to have their own techniques. And I like to add some spice to it, basically. Well, I'm gonna try to do 6 strike combos, but we'll see what we see. Starting with the rapier. Of course, point forward, hand behind the back is what mostly happens with rapiers. So let's give it a shot. Little turns to make a clear movement into taking action. And thrust is easy to see if you do it slow but powerful. That's why I personally think that's the way they should do it. Slow but powerful. Stand into it and use your hips into a strike. Longsword. I personally always prefer to take a low stance. Always taking the point forward. That's of course something that has to happen. Strike, 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 strike. What I did there was, with the last one, pommel strike, taking the sword far enough back that it's already offending on the other side, and then spin. Basically, sword on the side, strike. So even if the guy was offending me, I just strike his face with my pommel. Sword is slapped aside with the blade. Point is already back. I might as well. So that way you can even add a spin into a combo with a longsword. That way it kind of makes sense to do that. Daggers. A big dagger is something they can also slash with. So I'm gonna take that and keep that in mind. Personally, I think I would like to go with a rest stance for this weapon. Starting in it, at least. Holding the hand out, making sure it looks like the person is trying to keep someone away. Go for slash, 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 and step, step. This looks like I'm grappling someone, but it can also be trying to guard. And go for a double step. An inward stabbing motion is something most people do when fighting with knives. If they get too close, they come and strike like this. And since you're moving closer and closer, it makes sense to make a change in your moves. Because the guy might be moving backward and might not be moving backward. So you need to keep that in mind while you're fighting him. And you can't just keep slicing like this when the guy is right in front of you. I like to go with an axe now. Axes. Big clunky weapons are according to most video games. Not exactly. I personally think they're more nimble than most swords, but you need to know how to be nimble with them. Going point up so you can't hook. Makes sense to hook some guy's sword out of the way. So go with a stance that is already blade forward but ready to hook. Makes sense. Strike, 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 strike. A blade of an axe is always can always be used from any length. So basically going for a punching motion and an ending with a nice uppercut is something realistically could have been done. And yeah, it also looks pretty badass. Arming sword. Basically, yeah, let's start high. Strike, 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 strike. Aiming low and making advantage of its reach. You have two edges, so why not use them? And personally, I think with a sword like this, the best thing to do is to cut. You rather not trust. You can still trust, but doesn't mean it's the most effective way to use a sword like this. Maces. These are the real clunky ones. Doesn't mean it can be nimble as well, but you need to keep the motion going. Strike, 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 strike. It's more moves than I was expecting to do, but it feels nice to end it with a thrust in the stomach. If this mace had a spike, that would be pretty nasty. And even without a spike, this thing is still pretty heavy, so getting hit in the gut like that would hurt like a... Let's keep it friendly. Let's go big boy, poleaxe. I also have a shield next, and I'm gonna try to do some combos with the shield with each of the weapons you saw previously. I will try to do it with this, but I can't make any promises about that. Going point forward, shaft on the shoulder, strike, 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 strike. A nice thrust on the end from a low point, going for the gut. If you're not armored, that's gonna hurt like hell, and if you go up, that's going into the heart. I need to move some things right now. First, to actually get to the shield. I don't have a buckler, so yeah, I do have a buckler, but I don't have a Viking shield. I'm gonna only try to do this with the normal shield, because if I do the buckler as well, that would take too long. Rapier. If you want to do it simple, over the top like a spear, step, 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 step. Ending with the shield on the other side. You have a shield, you might as well move it around to keep moving on to other side. And protect it and move around your body while you move. Aesthetically keeping it there and starting stabbing like that, that's not really cinematic. Let's say it that way. Yeah, longsword, right? Longsword was next. Well, this is not historical at all, but I'll give him my best shot. Strike, 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 strike! I was too close to the camera, so I couldn't really do the last one, but I was actually expecting to go with a full-on bash and with an extremely strong thrust at the end. Making use of the end of the shield, the edge of the shield, to use the sword like a spear. If you have an extremely long sword, you can still cut, but basically it becomes a spear if you use if you don't have your second hand free. And it makes sense to use some spear techniques. Dagger, right? Dagger. What's X? Well, let's go with dagger. In this case, if you have a shield, you already have the fence down, you might as well go with a grip that's pointed down. This way you have more fence, because you can stab harder. Stab, 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 stab! Go with a strike no one expects at the end. With every single strike I do, I expect you to imagine me yelling. When you hear stab, or when you hear some slash or cut or strike or whatever, that means that at that point my character will be yelling. And that way, even if it looks less obvious when you're moving, you have a sound cue that makes clear to the other people in the game that you're striking at that moment. And if you do it like that, then you have an audio way to notice when someone is gonna strike. X. When you have a shield, you can still use it close, but strike, 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 strike! If this one has a point, going for upward strike, going for a downward strike is a good way to throw your opponent off. And if you make large motions, going with big strikes, then you make the loadout look longer and it takes longer to actually strike. Mace. Combo made in heaven or hell, depending on which end of it you are. Mace has very little defense, but is strong as hell in the attack. And shield, very little offense, strong as hell in defense. So basically, making up for one thing with another. Strike, 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 strike! People don't think about it, but you can still thrust with a mace, and if you get this thing in your face, you're done. Gonna give it a shot. Strike! 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 It's not exactly winnable, but good enough, I think. I forgot the sword, didn't I? I forgot the sword. Normal one-handed sword. One-handed sword. Let's try. Strike, 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 strike. I like back edge cuts. They look fancy as hell. And if you do them well, they're hard to predict as well. But if you do them like me, very loudly, you give it a big wind up, it's visible that what you're gonna do next. So it makes sense. I'm gonna be honest, it's not my best work. It's hot as hell today, so I try to do my best, but yeah. I hope you like what you see at least.